let's go to CNN, Krystal, because this is just some of the most stunning stuff that I've seen in a long time. Credit to Bari Weiss. May have some differences of opinion there, but look, she did a great job whenever she went on CNN's Brian Stelter and really called him and the network out to his face and held her own around the lab leak hypothesis, how the media covers up stories which are bad for the narratives that they don't like, and just really how irresponsible they are. Let's watch the entire thing in full. It really is worth watching.
You write, there are tens of millions of Americans who aren't on the hard left or the hard right who feel the world has gone mad. So in what ways has the world gone mad?
Well, you know, when you have the chief reporter on the beat of COVID for the New York Times talking about how questioning or pursuing the question of the lab leak is racist, the world has gone mad. When you're not able to say out loud and in public that there are differences between men and women, the world has gone mad. When we're not allowed to acknowledge that rioting is rioting and it is bad, and that silence is not violence, but violence is violence, the world has gone mad. When we're not able to say that Hunter Biden's laptop is a story worth pursuing, the world has gone mad. When, in the name of progress, young school children, as young as kindergarten, are being separated in public schools because of their race, and that is called progress rather than segregation, the world has gone mad. There are dozens of examples that I could share with you and with your viewers. And you often
say, you say
everyone
aloud.
Everyone sort of knows this. And
you say we're not allowed, we're not able.
Between,
who's the people stopping the conversation? Who are they?
People that work at networks, frankly, like the one I'm speaking on right now, who try and claim that, you know, it was racist to investigate the lab leak theory. It was. But I mean, let's just take an example.
But I'm just saying that when you say allowed, I just think it's a provocative thing you say. You say we're not allowed to talk about these things, but they're all over the internet. I can Google them. I can find them everywhere. I've heard about every story you mentioned. Course. So I'm just suggesting, of course, people are allowed to cover whatever they want to cover.
But you and I both know, and it would be delusional to claim otherwise, that touching your finger to an increasing number of subjects that have been deemed third rail by the mainstream institutions and increasingly by some of the tech companies will lead to reputational damage, perhaps you losing your job, your children sometimes being demonized as well. And so what happens is a kind of internal self-censorship. This is something that I saw over and over again when I was at the New York Times.
Look, that is so obvious in everything she's just said. I don't know about Brian. I really don't. You know, he was a good reporter in his own right.
Glutton for punishment, I think.
Yeah, maybe a glutton for punishment. It's like, you got to know better than to pretend you don't know exactly what she's talking about. And I also particularly hate whenever they do that trope of, well, I've heard of every single one of the stories that you're talking about. Well, have you ever covered it? Have you ever done a single segment on lab leak?
Right. It's your job not only to cover these stories, but also it's your job to know about them. So the fact that you, like journalist who makes your living knowing about news stories, knows about them, doesn't mean that they've been, shared with the American public. Listen, my issue with, while it is satisfying to watch certain parts of that exchange, Bari Weiss is a very poor spokesperson for this view because she has a gigantic blind spot where these things are concerned as well. I mean, this Axel Springer story we were just talking about, because it is, something that she's comfortable with this type of censorship. I haven't heard a word from her, not on her Substack, not on her Twitter feed. This is if you care about censorship and stories not getting covered, you should care a lot about that story. And this isn't a one-off. Look, anyone can miss any particular story. I'm sure I've missed instances of censorship that matter too. But she consistently only looks at those that fit her particular agenda. And I think anyone on the left or the right who is viewing the issue of quote-unquote cancel culture and censorship and authoritarianism and creeping lack of ability to have free speech through a purely partisan right-left lens, I think is missing the story entirely. So she doesn't bring up the state codified censorship of Republican-passed anti-protest laws or anti-BDS laws or any of the folks who have spoken out on behalf of Palestinian human rights who have been canceled or lost their jobs or be demonized, some of which she herself did when she was a college student, and look, I don't think people should be judged for their whole lives and what they do.
I think she's apologized for that. Or not apologized, but she's come out and said that she regrets what she did.
But you don't see her changing in terms of actually having a lens that's inclusive of all of the people and causes who are being censored right now. So that's why, while it is very satisfying to see Brian Stelter be told to his face that CNN sucks, I enjoyed that as well. That is why I think she's a very poor spokesperson for this, because she has just as many blind spots as Brian Stelter does.
No, I think it's always fair in order to point that out around what people talk about cancel culture. You know, Ryan Grimm did a great segment yesterday I saw about a campus, what was it? A campus
Bates
newspaper,
College.
Which fired people for being pro-union.
So they wrote an article.
Right.
There were workers who were trying to unionize. The student newspaper published an article with quotes from those workers.
Right.
The administration forced them to retract it and publish a new piece, and in place of those quotes with workers, they had anti-union propaganda. Something tells me that I don't want to only pick on Bari here, but no one on the right is going to, I shouldn't say no one, few on the right are going to bring that up.
I haven't seen it. I saw that story with great interest, and I think it's a very good, important one in order to point out, because as we all know, there are endless amount of clicks and money to be had whenever we're talking about by the way, I agree with pretty much every single thing that she said around all those issues, and I do think it is outrageous anytime one of those things does happen. And there's a lot of hay to be made around the culture war, and I think there's plenty of people who are fighting that.
Yes.
But there's not a lot of people fighting the class war. And what did we point out today on the unionization segment on Starbucks? I mean, these guys, Dollar General and Starbucks, are throwing everything they have at making sure that their working class employees in Buffalo, New York, or Dollar General. I mean, have you ever been to a Dollar General in a rural place? Like, sometimes these places are sad, and this is no commentary on the people within them. I don't blame them whatsoever. You'll see like a rotting Piggly Wiggly right next to it, right? Or some other grocery store which has been closed for like 10 years, and these people out there are fighting to like make more than like $12 an hour so that they don't have credit card debt.
Freedom of expression is being quashed.
It is, yes.
It is being quashed. And so, you don't hear those concerns. And so, listen, here's the thing, is I actually care about this issue. Right. That's why I try to, I'm sure I have my own blind spots, Lord knows, but I try to be fair about, even in places where I disagree with the person, saying, listen, they shouldn't be kicked off the platform. Yeah. They shouldn't be kicked off of Twitter. Donald Trump shouldn't have, this is a powerful political figure. He shouldn't have been deplatformed from all these places. I try to be consistent. And the reason why is because it's not about my pet issue or cause getting deplatformed and censored. It's about the principle. And the fact of the matter is, if you actually want a different direction, you're not going to get there by turning this into a partisan, sectarian issue.
You're actually the opposite will happen. I tell people that all the time.
Will happen, and it is happening. Yeah, right. That's exactly what is happening. The real beef that some on the right have is that they aren't the ones that exclusively get to do the censorship anymore. Both sides are really fighting to have control over what is allowed to be said in the public sphere. And if you don't see that overarching piece where this is a threat to, it is truly a threat to democratic force and the ability for independent voices to rise and all of that, that's 100% true. But it is not exclusively the province of the left or the right. And if you want to have allies across the political spectrum, you have to be willing to look at those places where people who have views that you do not personally support are also being censored.
It's not fun to be principled, but it's the only way to actually do anything about it.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.